sure everyone's feeling bright-eyed, bushy-tailed from last night. Thank you all for your patience in joining us again this morning. These are obviously very important matters for our community, so we'll call the meeting to order for the morning of June 23rd. This is, of course, a continuation of last night's meeting. And I'll ask Tony if she could please call the roll.
Jimenez. Perales.
Here.
Cohen.
Here.
Roscoe.
Present.
Davis.
Here.
Esparza.
Here.
Arenas.
Here.
Foley.
Here.
Mahan.
Here.
Jones. Licardo.
Present. Thank you.
Thưa cảm ơn. Chúng ta đã đủ số người họp ngày hôm nay để bắt đầu. Chúng ta sẽ tiếp tục 10.3 và 10.4 của cái lịch ngày hôm nay. Và chúng ta sẽ bắt đầu. Và 10.3, 10.4. Và tôi nghĩ rằng là ông bà Esparza, thưa bà. Xin chào.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah. So I just had one more question for Councilmember Cohen. I wanted to ask, so there are components of different memos that would require the applicant to return to council for approval before granting a development permit. And I wanted to hear from Councilmember Cohen why that wasn't part of the motion.
It is part of the main motion under our memo. I'm trying to find the item here. It's in, is it, which one is it? It's
Is that somebody else? Oh, is that you? Okay,
yeah, no,
I thought I heard another voice.
No, I was just trying to get help getting directed to the item here. Which one is it here? I'm not even looking at the right.
Yeah, for those in the public who are wondering, we had a flurry of memos that were filed yesterday. So I think everyone's doing their best to catch up with the various documents.
Oh, I think it's item 3 of the memo from the mayor and myself, Jimenez. Any planned future development that specifically authorizes detailed architectural design of a future urban market and the actual vendor stalls shall be considered for approval by the city council. And then it says prior to submittal of application for the PD permit, property owner shall make and complete. Oh, that's a separate item. But 3A is the item. It's in the memo there.
So, so would you consider specifically bringing that before council? Because it says approval by council. So, okay, there we go. A planned development permit. Okay.
Yeah. That was another piece we worked on trying to get at the end of the process when there was definitely a desire to see the council way back in before PDs were issued.
Okay, and I had, so that's helpful, thank you, because we do have a few memos. And then in Councilmember Carrasco's memo, so I have one more question for Councilmember Cohen. In Councilmember Carrasco's memo, it talks about 5-year leases and to freeze stall and parking rates. And I'm trying to see where that's in your motion.
That one's not. I'm going to let Vera weigh in on that question because we've discussed this with legal about what is in our purview.
Okay.
And I can just
or Nora, whoever wants.
Yeah, that's fine. Vera's on also if you need more specifics, but just generally, there's a prohibition, a state law prohibition on commercial rental restrictions. So rent control, basically.
Okay. could we specify the length of the lease?
I think that that would also be an issue. We can, I'll look at that quickly. I think that also is potentially an issue under that same state law. Let me look at that quickly. Vera, do you know off the top of your head? I'm not sure she's on yet, so let me check that.
No, I am on. I just was having trouble unmuting. I'm having computer problems this morning. I'm sorry. Same as last night. No, the length of the term cannot be specified either.
Okay.
By government agency. All of those things could be agreed to between the property owner and the vendors, or the tenants, but cannot be forced by the city. Cannot be a condition by the city.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And I'm going back and forth because we had a lot of memos and discussions.
Councilmember Esparza, I was, after thinking about your question last night, if it's helpful for us to include a line in our motion that specifies a supermajority of the members of the committee will be vendors, I'll be happy to add that to the motion.
Okay.
In addition, the line in Councilmember Prowless's memo, which let me see if I can find the exact wording, which says clarifying language that makes sure that the conditions of approval remain in effect in the event of property transfer. Well, I think that's already in there. Adding that as an additional statement to make sure it's clear is also makes sense and is fine to add. So we can add those two.
Okay, let me jump in here and clarify. Is that okay with the seconder, Councilmember Jimenez? Both, I assume.
That's fine with me. Yeah.
Okay, so the motion's amended in two ways. One, incorporate a mandate of a supermajority of vendors on the advisory group, and secondly, with regard to ensuring that these restrictions run with the property, regardless of who may be a successor. Is that right, Councilor Khan?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And then I had one more thing, and actually this was for Vice Mayor Jones. Is he on? I thought I heard him.
Yes.
Yes.
He's at a VTA. Oh, there he is. He's back.
I'm here.
Okay. So I had a question about the memo, because I just, it needs to be said, frankly. Here we have a landmark in San Jose that's existed over 60 years that brings millions of visitors to our city every year. And it's made up of mostly minority small businesses and has, as we've heard, has acted as an incubator for many small businesses, including some that have gone on to become franchises in our city. And so I wanted to ask the Vice Mayor, why are we trying to look at county land like that we don't control, right? And so that's question number one, because I'll put it out there, the Bum family has based their business model off of free land. And I don't think the businesses are getting free rent. So that's question number one. And then question number two is, has anyone considered the only other flea market in the city that, again, has existed for generations and is made of, brings many visitors to our city, that consists of hundreds of minority small businesses in our city. And so I'm concerned that we're taking like an escape from New York solution to try and displace people from a part of the city that they have helped to grow. And then we're looking for land that we don't control to displace them. And so I wanted to hear specifically what the thought was there.
Thank you, Councilmember Esparza. And I totally agree with you that the flea market is a treasure for the city. It's an institution, and it's an incubator, and an example of entrepreneurship and hard work and all the things that we should be proud of. But we also have to be realistic and recognize that if the flea market as it currently exists is no longer going to be able to continue because of this development, that we have to look at alternatives. For a lot of those vendors, they're not going to be able to move to the new market because it won't be a good fit for their business model. It won't be a good fit for the business model of the urban market. And so it's incumbent upon us to try to find alternatives. In my memo, we stated, look at county land. I want to look at city land. I want to look at private property, but the county has a lot of available land. So I think that we should at least explore the possibility or opportunity of utilizing county land. We might be able to utilize it for a reduced cost, which will reduce the cost to the vendors to be able to utilize that space. And we can potentially recreate what we have at the current flea market in a different location. Whether that's county land, city land, or other private property.
So that concerns me because it's just an open acknowledgement that we're displacing folks from a part of the city that they helped build. And so I did want to, I want to protect the flea market in my district, at least. I have a flea market that's been in existence over 40 years. And again, has hundreds of businesses in District 7. And I don't want two flea markets mad at us. I think we already have one hunger strike. And I don't think we want a second group of folks who are angry at us because we're bringing in essentially competition to their businesses that are thriving and bringing folks to the city. So thank you to Councilmember Cohen for accepting the supermajority change to ensure restrictions run with the property. I'm going to ask for one more, and that is that that we, as we explore, that we consider a 2-mile radius around the Capitol Flea Market to avoid further harming our small minority businesses that operate at the city's only other existing flea market. So I'd like to protect them.
Councilmember Esparza, we'll have Councilmember Cohen respond to your request for friendly amendment, and then we'll have to transition, come back.
I get it. Yep.
Councilmember Cohen?
Yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, I have no intention of trying to create that competition. There may be space at the Capitol Flea Market for some of the vendors. I mean, that's the only thing we had talked about before. Some of the vendors might be able to find opportunity there, but setting that aside, I'm perfectly happy to put in that radius restriction that you just recommended, so we can add that as another element to the motion.
Okay.
And Councilmember Esparza, that's in the spirit of my memo as well.
Okay. Thank you. And so I'm assuming the seconder accepts that.
Councilmember Jimenez? Councilmember Jimenez?
That is okay with me. Apologize, I'm on my phone.
Okay.
Technical difficulties, but yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
I think it would be helpful at some point to hear from our attorneys whether or not we can actually do that. But we perhaps we'll give them a moment to think about it and come back on that issue.
Well, if we're looking at county land, at land that isn't ours, I'm assuming that we can also exclude from our own study.
Oh, I'm sorry. This wasn't a mandate that thou shalt not. It's simply that we won't study it. Is that what you mean?
Well, so Chappie's memo directs city staff to identify potential public land that could serve as a new flea market space,
Right.
including county-owned sites, and report back to the council with these findings.
Right.
So what I'm asking is to protect the Capitol Flea Market and create a 2-mile radius outside of that in order to protect that flea market. And that is 100% within our control as a city.
Councilor Esparza, I'm asking a different question. So let me be very, very clear. I understand if the motion is we're not going to look for or identify any public land or any land within 2-mile radius, perfectly within our purview. If it is, thou shalt not be another flea market within a 2-mile radius, that's a different question. And I just want to clarify, sounds like your motion is the first, or your amendment is the first, not the second.
Well, I'd like to hear from the second as well, because I don't think, we would be creating a new problem and hurting a second large group of hundreds of minority small businesses in our city. So yeah, I'd like to hear the answer to that.
To whether or not precluding any competing flea market from being within 2 miles is lawful. That is the question. Is that right?
That's another question.
Okay.
Yes.
Nora, do you guys have any idea about that one?
Let us get a couple minutes looking at that. That's really not part of this motion, so that's something we can advise the council, because right now, as I understand it, the motion is simply for the work that's being done to identify other locations. That work would not include properties within that radius. Is that right?
That's part of the motion right now.
That's the minimum of the amendment. At the very minimum, it's going to preclude what we look at and what we explore. I think that the bigger question, it sounds like Councilmember Esparza is interested in knowing, is whether we can actually preclude any flea market within that radius. I'm guessing that's a much dicier legal question. So I know you need some time. It sounds like.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that we can do that as part of this matter. That may be something that the council could do subsequently in terms of zoning or other council actions for that area. But let us look to see if in this particular, for these particular approvals, if we can bootstrap that on. I'm not sure that we can.
Okay. And that's because of a Brown Act issue, or
partly Brown Act and partly, I think that the actions that the council would need to take would be more than just simply tied to the approvals in this case,
right,
or this particular project. And you could give direction for us to come back and for staff to come back for something like that. But I think it would be a real stretch to try to tie that kind of land use restriction for a different parcel to these approvals that are before the council right now. But we'll look in the meantime also.
Okay. So to be clear, what's on the floor now, and I'll clarify this with Councilmember Cohen to make her the motion, that that the city shall not explore or investigate any sites within a 2 miles radius of the capital flea market, and perhaps for city attorney and staff to return with the question of whether the city can actually prohibit any new flea market within 2 miles of the capital market. Is that your understanding of the amendment, Councilmember Cohen?
My understanding was really just the first part. I mean, I'm okay with the second part. I think there's some study warranted on the second item, but I think it'd take more work because it's not, the question of a competitive versus a symbiotic kind of situation in terms of the economic benefits of where the market should be located, hasn't been answered in my mind. But yeah, I certainly am okay with, item number 2 in Vice Mayor's memo, direct city staff to identify potential public land. Could I include then a sentence that says that search will not include any area within 2 miles of the capital, within a 2 mile radius of the capital flea market?
Okay.
That's the way to handle it.
Okay. Councilor Esparza?
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Menez, that's you're okay with that amendment as well?
Right? Can I just ask one question?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification because I think if we include that language as it relates to 2 miles radius from the capital flea market, that would naturally exclude the fairgrounds. And so I'm curious as to how that interaction is, and maybe that's Councilmember Esparza's goal, and totally understand that. But I think the fairgrounds is within 2 miles of the capital flea market. So that would naturally exclude that. And I'm curious how that interacts with Councilmember or Vice Mayor Jones's recommendation.
So let me be clear. Yeah, it includes the fairgrounds because it's right next to the Capitol Flea Market, which is a huge flea market that has hundreds and hundreds of vendors that has existed for over 40 years. And yes, I'm trying to protect the Capitol Flea Market. So,
So if, and I understand that we don't own the fairgrounds, we have no say as to how that plays out. But I got to tell you, in my view, is if the fairgrounds opened up part of their land to host the current flea market, I would be okay.
So you don't represent
so I wouldn't
that
necessarily
area.
be supportive of
So,
what you're saying.
Okay, I'm gonna,
The Capitol Flea Market is
my
down.
question
The Capitol
is,
Flea
I'm gonna-
Market is down the street from my house.
so
Councilmembers-
does the seconder accept the amendment that the maker?
Councilmember
do not.
Esparza,
Okay.
I do not.
Okay,
that's not acceptable to the seconder. Councilmember Cohen, do you want to reconsider?
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Can't accept it without the seconder agreeing to it. And hearing the conversation, I think we would need more time to evaluate this question. Interestingly, the original goal of the Bum families 10 years ago was to try to negotiate a deal to move this flea market to the fairgrounds. That was actually discussed, I think, pretty openly at the time. And the county couldn't come to an agreement. And if they had, then we wouldn't be having this discussion today because that relocation would have occurred. So it is an interesting question as to whether that's a good site or not. And
Okay.
Councilmember, and then as
So-
So Councilmember Esparza, we do need to move on. So you can come back to this issue. For now, it is not part of the motion. And certainly, Councilmember Esparza, we can
so
re-engage on
Mayor,
this.
so
Yeah.
I'd like to make a substitute motion that
Councilor
includes,
Esparza, we can
I
come
still
back
have the
to you.
floor. I
No,
still
you
have the
don't.
floor.
You lost the floor 10 minutes and 24 seconds ago. We're moving on. and
So
we'll
are
come
we
back.
going to stick to 10 minutes for each person? Is
Well,
that new? I mean,
No, I went to, I think, 12 or 13 minutes for you, as I recall, and then it continued. And I've been quite lenient to recognize the fact that people will hopefully exercise some self-restraint in moving on. If you want me to be precise at 9:59, I'll do so. But I can assure you, I have granted you and many of my colleagues an enormous amount of leeway in the hope that people would exercise the restraint to comply with the rule that you all approved. So we're going to Councilmember Foley next.
Thank you. I don't know about you all, but I'm exhausted. But this is a really important issue, and I know we don't have as many vendors probably participating at this call right now as we had last night, but what they had to say is really important, and I want them to know that I am concerned about their financial success and their survivability, both at the flea market and going forward. And I want to give you all a little background that you all probably don't know. In the early 80s, my husband actually had a flea market business where we would go to every Friday, we would pack up his stuff from our garage. We'd schlep it over to Capitol Flea Market in occasions. We'd go to Berryessa. If we couldn't get into Berryessa, we'd go to Capitol. Sometimes I'd join him. That was an exhausting business, but it's what we did in order to pay the bills, keep the lights on, and put food on our tables, frankly. We had that business for about 10 years, and it really helped us to save a little bit of money so that we could eventually buy our first house. But so I've been where all of those vendors are. It wasn't my business, it was my husband's, but I helped him every step of the way. And it is an exhausting business, and I appreciate the determination and the entrepreneurship of the vendors in the businesses that you have. I know many of the vendors have put their kids through college through their hard work at the Berryessa flea market. So I really appreciate and respect, and have been experiencing that vendor business back in the day. We did that for about 10 years, and I'll tell you, it was exhausting. We even, I have stories I could tell you about the Capitol Flea Market that are kind of fun and humorous, and someday I'll share them with you. But I just want you to know how I truly value the time that we spent with working at the flea market and what that meant to us and how it developed our character and created people who really value hard work. I have met with the vendors a couple of times, and I appreciate that. I did meet with the developers representative as well, but I've met with the vendors a couple of times, and I appreciate the conversations I had and their concerns. I want to thank Councilmember Cohen for coming in and working on this issue as soon as he did. I can't imagine having to address such a complicated issue when you become a brand new council member, but you really came together to investigate and negotiate the best deal possible for the vendors. And then for crafting the motion, we received a lot of memos yesterday, and they were complicated. So Councilmember Cohen, I appreciate you for sifting through them and figuring out what was important and what needed to be carried forward. So I am supportive of the motion. I know there is a concern about or a discussion about postponing till next week. Frankly, I'm not opposed to that, but I'd like to know what will be gained by postponing for a week. I don't agree with postponing for 90 days because I think we have the bones of what needs to be done to move forward with this agreement and this negotiation today. I do have one question, and it's about the additional $2.5 million that is in Councilmember Carrasco's memo. And I don't disagree with the funds. I'm just questioning the source. Can we allocate those funds from the American Rescue Plan? Do we know if that's a possibility?
So Jim Shannon is with us.
Yeah, good morning, council member. Jim Shannon, city's budget director. I think the initial answer is we're not sure. I think we would like to be able to revisit this when we come back in the fall to determine the nexus that we can draw to those that are economically impacted by COVID. I think the way it's currently structured, I'm a little bit hesitant, but I'd like more time to try to figure out what the right nexus is there.
Okay, so it's a maybe at this point. And then what I would want to know, in addition to can we use the funds, is there restrictions on when we must use the funds by? Because we're looking at if some of the vendors are being displaced and these funds are being used for relocation, it may be beyond the window, but I don't know. So maybe the question for me is, can they be used, and are there any restrictions on how they are distributed? I really support the creation of the advisory group and the supermajority. I think that's important. It gives the vendors a larger voice and will help them craft the use of those funds and how they can move forward with the additional funds, how they can be allocated. And I think that's important. So all in all, I am in support of the memos as they have been crafted, because it does protect the vendors, which we're all concerned about. It does provide the developer to move forward with the increased housing production and the affordable housing production, which is really important. And also the jobs that will be created by this development. This has been in the works for over 20 years that this land has been open for development, and we knew development would come. It's unfortunate that the negotiations with the vendors didn't occur until this year, but that's history. And we need to move forward to help protect the vendors and work with the vendors and make this a positive thing for them to do as well, because we don't want them to lose their business. We don't want them to be displaced. We want them to continue to thrive and be successful. With that, I'm finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Carrasco?
Okay, so that I have my timing down to the minute, to the second. It's 10 minutes that I'm getting.
It is, but if that's what everyone wants to go to, we'll go there. I've been trying to be lenient.
So
to-
more or less,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm gonna try and be very succinct and try and get to the point. You know, truly what this comes down to is a very large community feeling that they were excluded from this process. And I first of all, I have to say this, I do appreciate the work that D4, the new council member, and his entire staff have put forward. This has inched us much closer than we ever thought. And so I appreciate that work. It's not easy work, as you can see, coming into a council office, especially the first 30 days of getting sworn in. And I appreciate staff's work, but I really appreciate the interest and the energy that's been put forward by our community members, in particular by those that are at the flea market who, as you can see, it's been difficult to organize for different reasons, but I'll tell you, as someone who represents District 5, who, by the way, many of those individuals live in my district. Many of those individuals live in District 7. So they may do business in District 4, but they do business in they sleep and they raise their families in my district. But what I want to be real clear, that the decisions that we make today, regardless of where they live, where they sleep, where their children study, and I'm so grateful to hear that a lot of them are starting to go off to fulfill their dreams by attending universities and graduating and now going and getting their master's. This is the American dream. And regardless of where they work and where they have their business, we collectively make decisions for everyone. And I bring this up because at one point, there was a staff member who said to me in my office that I was not welcomed at a community meeting because those residents, those individuals didn't do business in my district. They may sleep in my district, but they weren't doing business in my district. And I want to be very clear. We represent everybody, even though you're voted in by your own district residents. And I try and make that point very clear, especially since the pandemic started. Because the pandemic, at least for me, really, really exposed the interconnected weavings underneath all the masks that we wear and all the hats that we wear. And so I want to be very clear. I'm here on behalf of the city of San Jose, trying to find a solution for a very complex situation. So just like I felt excluded from this whole process and was told, please don't cross over this border. Your border is on that side and you live on that side, not on this side. I can only imagine what our vendors must have been feeling throughout this process. And I know I saw a picture yesterday of, hey, these are our demands, but to have to write them out versus being at the table where you can negotiate and have conversations, or at the very least, figure out where's the sweet spot, or how do I swallow this very bitter pill. We know that in life, sometimes things happen to us, sometimes things evolve or devolve. And the only thing that makes it a little bit better are the relationships, the human contact, the interactions that come from that. And so I have to tell you, and I hope that we heard it, because I heard it loud and clear after several hours of public comment, that our vendors are feeling disrespected and disregarded in this process. And so I marvel at this because I do wonder, as some of the callers asked, if we were of any other hue or skin tone, would we be treated in the same way? I don't know. I have no idea. That's just an assumption. That's a question. But if they were of other means, we know how this could potentially pan out. And I'm not blaming anybody, and I'm not going to point fingers at anyone in particular. I've seen processes and decisions be made up here in the last 7 years that I've been in council that I haven't been happy with. And I've not been happy when it particularly impacts communities of color, poor people, people who are struggling, and we have the power to ease their suffering, the challenges that they face, or the uncertainties that we impose upon them. We impose upon them. And so this is one of those, and I know there's a lot that's already been baked into this formula, a lot that has been already baked into this plan, and we can't go back to 2007 and change it. But when there is a record of not 5, 10, 12, 15, but many times over, more meetings with a developer who has an opportunity to always be at the table with us. Always be at the table with District 4, always be at the table with the other districts whom are accessible. These individuals recognize that they haven't had that kind of accessibility. And in fact, I was not brought into this conversation until quite literally, maybe a month and a half ago, when the vendors themselves said, I thought you were in the Brown Act on this one. And I had never been contacted by the other district offices for me to weigh in, for me to make a phone call, to reach out to the vendors, to engage with them, to at least figure out how I could be of service to my council colleagues in this decision making, and to the Bum family, and to the vendors. And so, again, I think it's an opportunity missed, and an opportunity missed that will have dire consequences, because it is a historic site. And the 4 million plus visitors that come through those doors, they don't come to visit asphalt, the black tarp of a parking lot. They come through because, and only because, of the vendors that are there. They pull them in. They bring them in. And aren't we lucky as a city? I've never been called by any of those vendors to say, come help me with my stall. Come help me renegotiate a deal with my landlord. I'm having sewer problems. They won't pick up the trash. I've never once had one complaint from one of those vendors, not even during COVID. And so, I don't believe that we will get the 90-day extension, but I would really like to entertain a week extension. And it's not to find blame with anybody, but in Councilmember Cohen's own words, as we're discussing the fairground implications, you just said, I need more time to figure this out. I don't know. There are a lot of unknowns that would be great for us to explore and vet out, so that this bitter pill, the evolution or progression of a city, whatever, the demolition of historical sites, which is, by the way, interesting. We didn't demolish the domes on Winchester across from Santana Row. And in fact, that wasn't considered a historical site, but we elevated that and gave it great attention to that detail. And I'm going to ask planning about that in just a second. What makes it different? What's the dome? How's the dome different from the flea market? How does an empty theater on Winchester rise to such a sense of urgency and preservation versus a site where over 430 families are making a living for themselves as well as for their employees, and is a tourist attraction, bringing in millions of visitors throughout the entire year. And so I'm going to pause for just a second, Mayor, and I just want an answer to that. What is the difference between the dome and the flea market?
And Councilmember, who do you want to ask that question of?
Well, I guess it's planning.
Okay, and then Councilmember will come back to you after that question's answered, so we can abide by the rotation. Someone from planning want to respond?
Oh, David Keon, Principal Planner, Environmental Review. So I can respond to that. I was actually the planner on the Santana West project that had the Century 21 Theater as part of that project. So I did want to respond to that. But both projects were considered affordable, cultural resources, historic resources under the California Environmental Quality Act. Therefore, both EIRs that evaluated those considered those to be significant and unavoidable impacts. And both projects did require a statement of overriding considerations. So just, I did want to be clear there that in terms of our analysis, we both looked at them as demolition and as statement of overriding considerations in order to adopt them.
All right, thank you. Councilmember, if you can make it very brief.
Yeah, so just very quickly, Mayor. So as we're looking at still my question is, how does the one project warrant an efforts to preserve when it's an empty building, when it wasn't considered, it actually rose to the top for consideration when it wasn't. And we have another historical site providing livelihoods, income, and generating revenues.
Actually, I sorry, just also want to mention, during the Santana West approval of that project, the city council did consider demolition of the Century 21 and did adopt a resolution that would strip down the Century 21 Theater to allow it to be used as an auditorium. So even that project was going to be, was clear to actually be removed with just the frame remaining. So it wasn't necessarily that Century 21 Theater dome was to be preserved as part of that project entirety.
And the staff conclusion was the same, it sounds, to both. Okay, yes. So I think what you're hearing is there's no difference in the staff conclusion.
So
let's come back on that issue, Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
The last thing I'll just say is thank you, Mayor, so much for being so liberal with me, as others took a lot of time. And I'm just going to conclude with this and give other people an opportunity to speak. I'm asking for, all I'm asking for is a deferral. I'm making a motion to ask for a deferral for just 1 week. 1 week for us to sit down without pointing fingers, but allowing this to take place and for the vendors to at least feel that they were heard. We may still come back to the exact same solution if Eric's on the line, but to be able to have that conversation and allow that bitter pill to be swallowed with a little bit of sugar.
Councilmember Crosby, you just made, I think, a substitute motion. Is that right?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a substitute motion and a second from Councilmember Perales. Councilmember Perales?
Yeah, thank you. And actually, because I spoke last night, I'm actually happy to let, I don't know if
I'm sorry, Councilmember Perales, I was just reminded, Councilmember Davis hasn't spoken yet at all.
Yeah, I was just offering that up myself. So.
Okay, yeah, my apologies. I didn't see her hand.
You stole my gesture, Mayor.
Okay, so we'll go to Councilmember Davis and we'll come right back.
Mayor, before we go to Councilmember Davis, can I just get a clarification on the substitute motion? Was it a request for a deferral or a continuation to next week?
I just
I
want.
heard deferral.
Right, because Mayor, if it's a deferral, then we have to start the whole process
Yes.
all over again in terms
Yes,
of meeting.
many-
But if it's a
many hours.
continuation, then we can just continue the discussion.
Yeah, and I'll just be transparent here. I had texted our city attorney some time ago to try to determine whether it's going to make any difference, because frankly, if there are new memos brought in, we may be going all the way through public comment again anyway. And I'll leave it to the Rules Committee to figure out how that can happen, given all of the many items we have scheduled for next week in our very final meeting of the fiscal year. So, Nora, I don't know if you want to speak on this now or.
Yes, and Mayor, that's correct. You can continue this to next week for the vote and to finish any council discussions. But so you can have some time during the week to deal with meetings and that sort of thing.
Right, but then the question would be, Nora, if there are new memoranda from council members, as I expect there will be, about different ideas about what we can do differently, then do we need to reopen a public comment in the entire hearing all over again?
You would be continuing it next week just to finish the council discussion and then vote. So if there are memos, and further council discussion, that's all you're continuing it for.
So a new council memo will not force us to start from the beginning. I just want to make that clear. Is that right?
Yeah, your rules are, as you know, very complicated, so I'm
Okay, Nora's going
checking
to
to see if you have any special rule on new council memos. But if you're deferring it or continuing the meeting to next week so that you can do a little more work. There was an item, I don't know, a couple months ago in the Horseshoe area where it was continued a week and everything was not reopened, but there weren't new memos. So let me check the new memo issue.
Okay. Nora's going to check into that. We'll get an opinion before we make any votes.
So
Okay.
So can I ask Councilmember Roscoe, you just change it from a deferral to a continuation and we can kind of sort through.
The motion for now.
Before we do that, the question I have for Nora is if we change it from a deferral to continuation, or either way, does Councilmember Cohen's motion stands as is?
As it would, as long as if there isn't a vote on it. If you continue it next week to have some discussions, but everything is still pending, then that's where you would be.
No, my question is, when we do come back, say it's a continuation and we come back, at that point, since this is the substitute motion, will folks be able to make friendly amendments or make changes or whatever work we do during the week? I want to make sure that we have an opportunity, even if there is no comment, but that we have an opportunity to, as a council, discuss and amend whatever that motion is. So the motion wouldn't stand as it is today.
If you don't vote on it today and you just vote on the substitute motion and continue this hearing, then that motion would still be on the floor.
Well, I thought the whole point of a continuation or a deferral is so that we don't vote on it today.
Right.
Okay. Oh, I see.
I think that's your intent.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I get it. Okay. So Mayor, what I'm hearing from you is you prefer continuation. And I'm happy to go with a continuation if I can line up these votes, because I think it's important to just have a conversation, bring people to the table, allow them to have an opportunity.
You've made your point clearly. We've got to move on. If you're amending your motion to a continuance rather than deferral, is that what you'd like to do?
That's fine.
Okay, is that all right with the seconder?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to come back and Nora's going to give us an opinion about whether it's been a matter one way or another when she's had a chance to look at the rules. and then we'll come back. In the meantime, let's proceed with discussion. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, we already voted on a deferral last night and it didn't pass. So don't know if whether a deferral or a continuation matters, but I just wanted to say thank you to Councilmember Cohen for working with the property owner and the vendors to devise a compromise. It's clear from your very detailed memo that it was that you've taken everything possible into consideration, and I very much appreciate that. I know that's not easy work, and to do it so quickly just coming into office is commendable for sure. I think what is on the table right now in terms of the underlying motion preserves the existing jobs and small businesses and provides a path to that, while allowing for more dense development. And I think that's really important because we're talking about the only BART station in San Jose right now. So I love the urban market idea. And I think, having, I'm guessing the market, I've never been there when it's not a weekend. I'm guessing the market is much more lively on the weekends than it is during the week, and having the probably pretty empty BART parking lot available and other streets available during the weekend would be a way to.
Can I ask everyone please to mute? Thank you.
Would be a good way to ensure that the weekend warriors, as Councilmember Foley and her husband had space while providing, that permanent space for the vendors who are there on a daily basis. So I really like the urban market idea, and I think there's a lot to work with there, and a compromise that can be crafted, probably not easily as we have heard in the last couple of days, but definitely something that can be worked out over time. And then I think it's great to have the Office of Economic Development do that business development with the vendors. And I think that's really something that I had hoped that the Office of Economic Development would be doing. They've always been a very small office, and directing them to kind of start doing these things with specific populations and communities, I think is a great way to build that strength and capacity in the Office of Economic Development. So I really appreciate that. I'm not going to support the 1 week deferral. I still haven't heard, to me, a compelling reason why we would get somewhere else with the 1 week deferral. I actually think the sooner we get Councilmember Cohen's compromise in place, the better the relationship between the vendors and the property owner and the city will actually be, and they can start working towards something as opposed to working at loggerheads, which is what I'm seeing right now. So I'm going to be supporting the underlying motion. I am not going to be supporting a 1 week deferral. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Perales. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And let me try and answer some of those concerns and I think give some reasoning for what we're calling now a continuance versus a deferral. And I think that the reason why maybe this is worthwhile at this point is because we've heard that potentially Councilmember Foley may be willing to, if convinced. And I think that's really what I didn't have an opportunity to do. As we all know, we simply had to take an up or down vote without any explanation. And so I do want to talk a little bit about, I think, the reasons why. So number one, if you look at my memo and some of the additions that I've asked for, which I appreciate Councilmember Cohen has now included a number of them, but they're not all included. And we could do what we typically do, which is try to hash things out here. Considering the 10-minute time limit, we'd probably have to go around 3 or 4 times to maybe debate some of these issues to get everything included, not only in compelling, the maker of the motion or the underlying motion, but a seconder, as we've seen as well. On right, we make sausage here, and that's not necessarily the easiest to do. And additionally, I have some requests, and so does Councilmember Carrasco, that would require us to make some asks, voluntary asks of the applicant. And that's specifically my recommendation number 6, where I could bring them up and we can have a public discussion around it where we try to see what more is possible, and we can do that. Or I believe we could continue this 1 week, and we can likely have some of those conversations to see how much further this item can move. And I'll tell you why I'm confident that it can, because I've seen it move just over the last week and a half. There is a lot that is included in the current motion and in Councilmember Cohen's memo of things that I was asking for over the course of the last 2 weeks. And I will tell you, a number of those, I was told by Councilmember Cohen's office that the applicant, the Bum family, would walk away if we asked for them. Well, lo and behold, over the course of a week and a half, a lot of those got incorporated, and the family actually agreed to some of these voluntary asks, and Councilmember Cohen and I were able to make a lot of progress. And so in just that short time period, we've already seen a lot of movement, and I appreciate, again, as I've mentioned a number of times, the work from Councilmember Cohen to get us where we're at. What I feel is that there's actually a little bit more room to be able to try to see if we can't make this even better for everybody involved. Secondly, there was this idea of an urgency as to why a 1-week deferral should not be considered. And so I want to ask, I don't know if Jackie is here. I want to ask a question.
I am here. Thank you.
Thank you. So there was this understanding from Eric Shanhar was telling us, Councilmember Cohen's office and me, and the mayor, I believe as well, that there's this July 12th NOFA deadline application for an affordable housing grant, and that they needed to get that. And hence, if we did a 1-week deferral, which, by the way, again, I mentioned it last night, we could do a special hearing on July 6th if we still wanted to have the second reading. So it still doesn't preclude it. But what I've learned as of late is that it sounds like there's really no likelihood that they're even going to get approved for this grant. And so I wanted to see if you can speak a little bit to that grant process. It's the infill infrastructure grant at the state, and just see, do we really think that there is a concern here for them losing an opportunity at that grant?
Yes, I'm Jackie Morales-Farand. I'm the Director of Housing. My understanding of the infrastructure grant after talking to HCD is there are 2 ways to apply. One way is an area, so redevelopment, like the flea market is, could qualify as a redevelopment area. However, HCD did not change the rules, and so the applicant would have to be the city and not the developer. And the city is not prepared to submit an application. We would have had to have discussions with the flea market in advance in order to submit an application. So we are not prepared as a city to do that at this point. Projects can submit, and but projects would have to be much further along. There's 20 points that are allocated for funding commitments on the affordable side, and of course we're nowhere close to having a funding commitment on the affordable side. So I think because the application requires or has points for the affordable having a funding commitment from a locality, they would never be able to achieve potentially a high enough score that would make them competitive.
Thank you, Jackie. And I think maybe the applicant might not be totally aware, but I believe that Eric may be aware of some of the challenges because he understands these grants very well, and we've had some exchanges on that. And so I personally think, and as you've just described, there honestly is no urgency that would require us to take a vote today. Now, I understand there is the threat looming that maybe the applicant walks away, and I feel that's unfortunate that that's been brought up a number of times. But as I asked Eric last night, he said that might be right. That might be a possibility. It wasn't sort of a definitive. I don't think they want to. I think that certainly, what I've seen from the applicant, the Bum family, they're very interested in moving forward with this project and coming to positive outcomes. They're very interested in not having a lot of negative publicity around it, which unfortunately, obviously, right, that's kind of where it's gone. So I think that they do care, and they do. There is an opportunity to move a little bit further, especially when you look at my memo. Not all of those elements have been included. Councilmember Carrasco's as well, and there's some asks of the applicant that we would need to make. And I will say, if a If a continuance does not get approved today, well, then I will likely raise my hand a couple more times and try to go through, including some friendly amendments in the underlying motion, ask the applicant for seeing how much more wiggle room there is. I think I prefer not to do that and instead have those conversations with Councilmember Cohen's office and the applicant over the course of the next now 6 days. It wouldn't even be a 7-day continuance. And be able to hopefully come to a place where there is more consensus next week than we have today. The last point that I'll make is we also have vendors that are hunger striking. There's a human element to this as well. And if we can continue this to next week, it's my understanding that then they can end their hunger strike and come back next week. Well, work with us and work with Councilmember Cohen's office and work with the applicant and try to see how much more we can actually achieve to pull this together. So I think there's a lot of valid reasons as to why we should consider that. And I appreciate the dialogue around, could this be a deferral or a continuance, and the benefit of that maybe as far as we will just take up the vote next week versus a whole new hearing. I'm comfortable with that. I think, right, we've certainly been debating this and hearing a lot, and I'm comfortable even if the motion that's on the table stood till next week, and at that point we're augmenting it with friendly amendments. I'm comfortable with that, and I'd like to hear from Nora if indeed you were able to find, is that based on the understanding that we've had in conversation? I don't know if you have an answer for that yet.
I have under your rules, you can continue the meeting. The public hearing is closed. You would be continuing the meeting to continue the council discussion. But I will advise the council and want you to remember the Brown Act. And so you can't be reaching agreements outside of the discussion here, and agreements and having discussions with each other outside of any Brown Act work that you put together. But you need to be particularly careful about that.
Just as we are right every week, we just have to we stick to our Brown Acts on the item, which it's, that's commonplace for us. So I think that should be perfectly fine. So let me see if Mr. Schoenhauer is still here. I'd like to invite him back up to ask him around this idea of a continuance.
Schoenhauer, are you on? There you are.
Yes.
Hi, Eric.
Hello. Good morning.
So curious, now we're discussing the possibility of a continuance till next week where we can try and have some conversations between now and then before we take a vote. And there's been obviously a couple letters or emails written as well in letter form that state that if we didn't take a vote, sorry, Councilmember Jimenez is unmuted. If we didn't take a vote yesterday, which obviously we continued it already to this morning, but if we didn't take a vote, then there's the potential that everything that was voluntary on the table gets pulled off. Is there more of a stomach now from the applicant that they'd be willing to still work together for one more week with a continuance?
We're not eager for any further delay. I mean, I think council members have outlined their ideas in the memos, and I believe that Councilmember Cohen and Jimenez have accepted into their motion the elements of those memos that make sense. And
I'm just looking really for a yes or no. I mean, quite frankly, if that's the case, yes, then that's fine. I mean, that's it. I'm just sort of looking for a definitive answer.
And we'll need to move on to another council member after this answer. Shano?
I'm not sure what the yes, no answer is. We obviously are comfortable that a decision today will keep the voluntary offers in place. As you saw in our letter, that expired on the 22nd. We didn't anticipate the meeting would roll into the 23rd. So I can definitively say that for a decision made today, that all of our voluntary offers are still on the table for today, and that we'd ask the council to make a decision on the memos that are being moved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and let me just get absolute clarity on this. Shana, are you saying then the voluntary offers may not be on the table next week? Or are you saying that? I just want to get clarity here so we all understand what decision we're making.
We've not made that decision. They already expired. And we're saying here today that they're on the table for today.
Right. Okay. In other words, there is uncertainty as whether or not there will be.
It's just, you know, after 5 years and $3 million of working on this project and you know, 6 months that Councilmember Perales and others have been involved, it's time to make a decision. It just goes on and on and on and on.
Mr. Shane, I just wanted a simple yes or no. That was it. Are these on the table or not? It sounds like it is uncertain as to whether or not it will be on the table.
That's correct, beyond today.
All right. Councilmember Esparza?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank my colleagues for really engaging in the dialogue and encouraging us to dialogue. I'd like to thank Councilmember Perales and Councilmember Carrasco and Councilmember Foley for being willing to give us a few more days to get to have more dialogue. And in particular, you know, we do have hunger strikers here at City Hall. We have people putting their health, their well-being, their bodies on the line because it's the language of the unheard, right? It's sort of a last-ditch effort to encourage us to have more dialogue. And so I would appreciate a few more days. I don't think after 17 years that 6 days would is asking too much. And so I just wanted to say that I'm heartened by the dialogue over the past few minutes to extend this discussion 6 more days. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cohen?
Yeah, first I want to ask, maybe it's for Dave, for the city manager's office. There's been some mention of whether we would have the ability to have a second, like a special meeting to do the second reading to get this done in early July. What is the capacity of the city manager's office to do that? Not, notwithstanding the question as to whether council members and others will be on vacation that first week of July and scattered around, but what would be the capacity to have a special meeting to get this finished?
Yeah, thank you, council member. That is very much the decision of you all, the council. If the council decides they want another meeting in July, we will have another meeting in July.
Oh. Okay. Okay. So, I just want to give a little background about the conversations we've had, because I know there's been a lot of talk about, whether we've engaged throughout the process. So I started yesterday talking about how at the beginning of the year, Councilmember Perales talked and my office talked about the lack of engagement with the vendor association through the, through the past years, especially in the past council member. But I know that, honestly, there wasn't much engagement with the District 4 Council office, dating back all the way to 2003 when the BART project was approved. We reached out, engaged with the group, with vendors at that time. We had several conversations with them in February about what their approach should be to advocate. We specifically suggested that they go to the Planning Commission to express their views on the project. Because of COVID and the inability to do in person, we thought that was the most effective way. So our office specifically recommended they go to the Planning Commission meeting, where they went and gave their comment and actually got the deferral that the Planning Commission gave, which gave us space to then go back and meet. The Planning Commission recommended that there be a face-to-face meeting with the between the Bum family and the vendors, which occurred. They had a specific face-to-face meeting at the table. We met with the Vendor Association again on April 9th, and they shared that list of demands that you saw in writing, but we had that shared with us in a face-to-face meeting. They then met with the property owner on April 16th and shared their demands with them. That was done in person. And the Bum family went and worked on that number one concern on the list, which was how can we create space in the market? They worked with the applicant and city staff, came forward with 3.5 acres, was a little bit of discussion about how that wasn't very much, and it got increased to 5 acres to be brought back to the Planning Commission meeting on May 12th. I do want to, as an aside, thank Councilmember Davis for her comments about the urban market. I think it can be a great addition to this site, and also address Councilmember Crasso's question about the historic nature of the site. I mean, it's definitely an historic site. I spoke in January with staff about what are we going to do to pay homage, even if the flea market closes, to this cultural institution that's been on this site for 60 years. That was very important. At the time, of course, there hadn't been much thought beyond putting up some murals and making a plaque showing the history of the site, and that wasn't enough. In my opinion, the historic nature of that site is the cultural activity on that site, and it's not, like in other cases, that there's a specific building or structure that needs to be preserved, but a culture that needs to be preserved, and that's what we then set out to try to achieve in the new site. After the Planning Commission recommendation on May 12th to move forward with zoning 5 acres that would set aside space for the flea market, we set out to create a letter of intent with the property owners to describe a lot of agreements that would be necessary to guarantee that the vendors that are there currently would have a space, that they would be affordable, that there would be that they would get in writing guarantee of 1-year notice, so that they would have some more certainty about their timeline. And all those things were written down and agreed to in the voluntary agreement. We continued to then discuss, well, what about the financial arrangements, and worked on an agreement with the Bum family to get a financial seating for a package that would be put in place, and that would be run by a vendor group, a majority vendor group that would be called the Flea Market Advisory Group. And we continued to communicate with the vendors throughout. We had one member of my staff who was specifically assigned, and the mayor thanked Hugo Jimenez last night in his remarks. Hugo has been the liaison to the vendor association and had specific discussions nearly weekly with members of the vendor association to say, here's what we're working on now, and what are your concerns, and what can we bring back to the Bums. So our office has had those regular conversations. We then invited the vendor association to be part of the discussion on how to create that letter of intent, and they declined that invitation. So we continued to push forward with developing that letter of intent. And we continued pushing till the last minute on some of these things. As Councilmember Perales pointed out, there were a couple of items that came up even late. The question of whether or not that 1-year notice was enough certainty. We pushed back pretty hard in the last month to say we need some more. We need a later date for the point at which that notice could occur. And we got agreement to move that, to make sure that that notice couldn't be given before July of 2023 to guarantee at least 3 years of continuity of operation at the flea market. And then the last item was getting agreement on whether the PD permits would have to come back to council before being granted. And that was another big negotiation that happened in the last month. I also had several conversations with Councilmember Perales in the last few weeks, where he'll remember that I said, you should directly engage with Eric and use that as a way to ask for some of the things that you're asking for. And there have been 2 weeks, which I think that conversation for some reason or other hasn't occurred, but we were definitely saying that this is the right thing to do. Go out and ask for things that you think are not already in this deal. I'm not convinced that there's anything more that can be achieved in this deal in another 6 days. So I still believe that we have the makings of what will be a good collaborative process going forward. As Eric pointed out last night, a face-to-face meeting hasn't been productive in the current environment, but with the new environment in a vendor-led flea market advisory group, seeded by resources that now, thanks to Councilmember Carrasco, will include another $2 million plus from the city. There's an opportunity now to move forward in that collaborative way. So I believe that we can make this, take this vote today and move forward. I won't be supporting the delay, but I'm obviously everyone will make their decision about that before we come to the vote later. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carrasco.
Thank you. Um, well, I appreciate the all the comments, and again, I appreciate the complexity of this issue and the ramifications of our vote today, one way or the other. I do have a question for Eric, if you don't mind. Because my understanding is that at least one of the items that I included in the memo can't be, and I knew that it couldn't be enforced, and this is why I didn't use that language. It was a suggestion uh, uh, to the applicant to freeze the leases, or to put to implement leases, because my understanding is that the vendors are on a month-to-month basis. And so the question,
That's correct.
Eric, I have for you is, you know, you and I did meet, we talked about this, and we talked about the possibility of providing a tool that would give the vendors a greater sense of stability over these next several years when their future is so unpredictable. And I'd like to know whether or not this is something that the Bum family could commit to. We can't force them. I don't even know what kind of language we could put into a motion in terms of just friendly conversations. I don't know. But you and I did have a very specific conversation about leases and freezing the current rates.
Yeah. So, you know, as to the question about leases, first of all, no vendor has a lease. They have a monthly license agreement to sell things on our property. And so it's a different legal construct, a license agreement compared to a lease. And we've always had license agreements, but they've always been month to month at the most, never longer. But to address the issue, because the issue is security and continuity. And so in the memo by Councilmember Cohen, Liccardo, and Jimenez, there's two things in there that work together. And the first is the fact that the vendors will have 3 years, right? Because the market's going to be open for 3 years. And there's a second component in the memo that says that as long as a vendor abides by the rules and the terms of their license agreement, they will not be evicted. Because, you know, one concern was that some people felt they would be evicted if they participated in the process or did something, or we didn't like them. Well, the memo makes it clear that as long as people abide by the rules and terms of their license agreement, they won't be evicted. And therefore, putting those two things together, vendors have a known 3-year period that they'll be able to be at the flea market site, minimum 3 years. So we thought that was pretty good. It's not 5 years, as you're suggesting, but 3 years.
And so the license to sell, so is that because for vendors you can't do leases?
You know, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. It's a different legal construct, and it's just always what the flea market has done.
And so do we know whether a lease provides greater protections for the tenants? Obviously protecting the landlord as well, but does it provide greater security for, and I don't know this, I don't know anything about contracts.
Yeah, like I said, it's a legal question, the distinction between a license agreement and a lease. But in the end of the day, the issue is the vendors want to know that they will be able to continue to operate on site for a clear amount of time, right? That's the concern, and that they won't be randomly or unfairly evicted. That's the main concern here. And so the two provisions in the Cohen-Jimenez memo put together assure that they will be able to operate on the flea market site for 3 years minimum, and they will not be evicted as long as they abide by the terms of their license agreement. And when we say terms, we mean they got to pay the rent that's due, right? And there are rules of conduct that you have to follow. But assuming you follow the rules, you're there for the next 3 years.
And in terms of, and again, I think that that allowing us these next 6 days at this point, it's not even 7 days anymore, folks. We're running down the clock. And the next 6 days would allow us an opportunity to explore the difference between a license and a lease. The other question, Eric, is an opportunity for these families who know that they will be displaced from their place of business. There's no question about it. We know this. This is why we're trying to bake into this all these other measures in order to capture all these folks that are going to fall through the cracks. Because we know that there's going to be displacement. We know that people are not going to survive the transition. They're not going to survive the change from the La Pulga, the flea market, to an urban market. They're just not. And so the question is, as they prepare themselves for an unknown future, can we look at freezing the current rental spaces? And I think you had indicated that that the rents haven't gone up. Although I have an understanding that the rates have gone up for parking, so in a sense, that's raising rents for folks, because it's quite expensive to park at the flea market. But so what can we do to provide a sense of security? And I bring up this question because if you don't have the answer for that, this is again another issue that can be vetted out one way or the other. Doesn't, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
I mean, we have an answer, and that we're not inclined to do that. I mean, we're a business also, and our costs are going up. Right? We have employees, the costs for our employees are going up. The costs for utilities are going up. The cost for water is going up. You all had a session yesterday about San Jose clean energy. Everything is going up. And so to not be able to have some of your revenue go up with your costs is not a good business model.
Okay, well,
but I mean, everything's getting more expensive. And we're running a business. We're the ones that keep the power on. We're the ones that empty the trash, right? We're the ones that clean the toilets. We're the ones that clean the litter. So we have a large business to keep the market running in a good fashion, and a site that's clean and safe and usable. That all has expense.
Of course. And I don't have access to the books, and I don't have access to that bottom line, but I would expect that given what I think is about to happen either today or 6 days from now, that the Bum family could figure out how to help these vendors who are not wealthy people. They're hardworking people who just come in and provide a benefit to the city of San Jose, and in turn, we're going to provide a huge benefit to the Bum family. So how do we all coexist in a way that we can support each other, especially families who, who some of them might be doing extremely well, but some of them are having to get multiple stalls so that they can capture the clientele that's walking through the flea market and be able to make ends meet. And the pandemic hit everybody very hard. I mean, you indicated to me the loss in revenues that the flea market experienced. But to put it in perspective, that line in front of my house where the food is being distributed has not gone down. It's gone up. We see it wrapped around several blocks. And the last thing I want is for that line in front of my house, by the way, I have 2 distribution sites right in front of my house, that these distribution sites now become even busier because now we're trying to figure out how we're going to feed the vendors and their families, how we're going to continue subsidizing these families so that they can survive in a not always friendly business environment. So I'll leave it at that.
Yes,
I
so,
hope
yeah,
you
so
all have-
I mean, our
Okay,
expectation is
Just
that
to
the
just to be clear, when Councilmember Crossgar, did you finish your question?
Yeah, what I was about to say is, thank you, Mayor. What I was about to say is, colleagues, I hope that you give us 6 days to come back and just have an opportunity, and it may be the exact same result. I don't expect to be a miracle worker. I think that we're at 98% of where it's going to end up.
Yeah.
But I'm imploring with each and every one of you to take into account not the numbers, not the bottom line, not the 2007 zoning vote that took place. What I'm asking is, please look at the human element. These are families that have been there for over 30 years. Individuals who didn't come out here asking for charity, but came here and contributed and built the city of San Jose. Maybe not a techie worker. I agree with that. Maybe they don't speak analytics and databases and all this, and they just know how to, like Pam Foley said, lug their stuff into a car, push it through the parking lot, and set up their stall, and they've been successful at it. You
Okay.
know,
Just
allow me to finish, Eric. And the last thing I'll say is, we have an opportunity. Unlike, in my opinion, unlike anything that we've seen here at the council. I know we deal with so many important issues, but each and every one of you has an opportunity to be part of this unbelievable, incredibly beautiful immigrant story. You can flip the narrative on this. You can be part of a narrative that says we supported an immigrant community who now has children who are attending four-year universities, UC Santa Barbara, UC Santa Cruz, San Jose State. They're getting their masters, they're getting their bachelors, they're getting their masters. These are young, highly educated youth who will probably at some point one day be sitting in these seats where we are today. Don't discount it. Don't discount it, because I was the daughter of cannery workers who barely had a 3rd grade education and could barely speak English. And had anyone seen my parents, no one would have expected anything of their children. So don't undermine or undercount what this story could be. And you can be part of it. You could be part of this incredible immigrant story. Thank you. That's it for me, Mary.
Councilmember, we'll come back to you. Eric,
just-
you can
if I
have a
just
chance
keep
to
it-
respond, and then we're going to move on to the next councilmember. Go ahead, Eric.
I just want to say, just keep in mind, in terms of flea market operations and our costs, we're taking $2.5 million out of the operation of the flea market and giving it to the vendors. So we can't simultaneously also decrease the ongoing revenue of the flea market business, or we won't have the $2.5 million to give to the vendors.
I'm not asking you
Okay.
to forgive
No,
their
no,
rents. I'm
Councilmember,
asking
we're
you to
moving on.
freeze them.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm just gonna, I'll keep it short. I'm gonna support the 1-week extension. I heard the arguments for it. Not totally sure what can be accomplished in a week, but I don't see where there's any harm to at least continuing the conversation for that period of time. And who knows, maybe something could come out of it. So I will support the substitute motion to extend the meeting for a week, or the topic for a week.
Okay. I'm going to just offer that I haven't weighed in a while, so I'll just offer my 2 cents. I heard Councilmember Carrasco say that we're about 98% of the way there. And I think you've heard from Mr. Shaynauer some resistance about pushing much further. The big question for me is whether or not there's going to be any voluntary offer 6 days from now. And if the answer is no, then I think our mandate is pretty clear. We are either going to have to take it or leave it. And I know people don't like that choice, but it's not, frankly, our decision to make. It's a voluntary offer, and it's not even Mr. Schoenhauer's decision to make. He's got clients, and I don't know what those clients have said to him. But if this offer isn't on the table in 6 days, we will have set ourselves back. More importantly, we will have set hundreds of vendors back, not just a little, but a lot. Being able to continue the urban market in a form that allows for 5 acres plus perhaps more on streets and weekends, to be able to provide some kind of time commitment to them so that they have certainty in their lives, so they know that they have at least 3 years to either figure out a path or commit, ensure that they can stay there. And whatever some transitional dollars, I don't think the dollars are frankly all that significant here one way or another. But for me, the big question is time and place. Are they going to have a place to go, and are they going to have the time? And if what we're hearing from Mr. Schoenhauer is, I can't tell you we're going to have this still on the table 6 days from now, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mr. Schoenhauer, this was something that was supposed to expire yesterday. If this goes away 6 days from now, the difference is between 98% and 0. If you think that remaining 2% is worth it, then go for the deferral, go for the continuance. I don't. And that's why I'm not going to support a continuance. And I think it's perfectly fine for folks to say, I know I could have negotiated something better than Councilmember Cohen, but hopefully Councilmember Cohen has explained for all of us, this isn't something he just started a week ago. This is something he's been at for several months since he came into office on January 1st. And although we might have a better opinion about how we might do things a little better, you better be really sure you're a whole lot smarter than they are. And that Mr. Schoenhauer is going to somehow or another persuade his client to keep an offer on the table 6 days from now. And I have no idea what the outcome is going to be of that. And those are two big question marks. So I'm not going to support a continuance. Councilmember Perales.
Thanks, Mayor. And I was actually going to ask Councilmember Foley if she had felt, my explanation on reasons for continuance was sufficient. But I've heard Vice Mayor Jones sounds as though he's convinced. So I think we may have some support to be able to do that. But I will still go ahead and ask Councilmember Foley. I don't know if what my explanations were on an opportunity and on continuance. And I will say again, to reiterate, we got really far over just the last week and a half, much further than we were being told we could get. And so I absolutely think there is progress to be made. We may be close to the end, but I wanted to just see if you were convinced on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Perales, for asking. Frankly, I'm not sure. I've been listening to the debate, and I've been listening to Mr. Schoenhauer's responses, and with all due respect, Eric, I don't believe I feel there's a little posturing going on, and thinking why the applicant would pull the offer off the table in a week, given the increased development potential with the plan if we approve it going forward, and the additional profitability for that. So that's what's going through my mind. I am very thoughtful about what Councilmember Cohen has to say. This is his council district. He has been the lead negotiator on this. So that's why I'm still undecided, Councilmember Perales, because I do listen to what the council member of the district has to say, and his opinion. So far, he said he doesn't support the continuance. So, and I wouldn't postpone agree to a deferral, but the continuance is more compelling because that closes the public hearing. We've already heard from 100 folks. So on the 29th, I really don't want to hear the same, although the vendor input is of course important, but we've heard it and I understand. So, I'm still 50-50. Let me put it out that way, but I'm being thoughtful and listening.
Thank you,
I hope
Councilmember.
that, that doesn't give you anything, but it helps. Maybe it helps.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your frankness and look, their reality, right? I think especially with what we're hearing from the letters from the Bum family, and then what we're hearing from Mr. Shane Howard today, and I know that's been Councilmember Cohen's main concern is losing everything. So I don't doubt, right, that there's a genuine concern on that possibility. I would agree with you, though, that it's posturing. I have absolutely no belief or no assurity that I think the Bum family is actually going to walk away if we continue this for 1 week, especially considering that I don't think we're asking for too much more movement. We're asking for an opportunity of, number one, a little bit of time, and number two, to be able to have that conversation from now till then. And I don't believe so. And so I do want to ask Roberto, the Vendors Association president, if he's still on the line, if he can raise his hand and we can call him up. And just for the others that have raised their hand, people that spoke yesterday, I know, Mayor, we haven't mentioned this yet, but we're done with public comment. So I know we've had people that have been raising their hand and public comment is complete. So I know I think people may be interested in speaking. But Roberto, I see you raised your hand. Can we unmute him?
Yeah, I think Henry's can bring him in.
Great, thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Roberto. How you doing?
Good. Good morning.
Morning. So I'm curious if you believe that the Vendors Association feels it's beneficial to have this, 1 week continuance, and that you would be interested in coming to the table. And more importantly, would you be willing to end your hunger strike? Because obviously we're concerned about your personal health as well. So that's the question for you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Councilmember Perales, Councilmember Carrasco, and every single council member and the mayor as well for the debate today. Definitely appreciate it. And yes, we do strongly believe that in 1 week, we'll be able to pencil down and get those assurances that we need. And, and a word that me and my colleagues have been saying, Frankenstein these memos and make something really viable that lays out that framework for us, the vendors, for us, the community, for the city, and for the landowners to develop something that's really going to be great. But, this is probably the first time we're actually brought to the table. So I want to thank you, Councilmember Perales, for that. And yeah, we do believe we can get that done through collaborative work. And I believe we would be willing to stop the hunger strike if we are brought to the table.
Okay, thank you for your response. I appreciate that. And what I want to, sort of make a point here is this isn't just me as a council member, any council member here trying to determine what is best for the vendors. These are actually vendors that a lot of them have been part of the market for 40 years, right? And they almost have a closer, connection and relationship with the property owner themselves, right? And it's these vendors that we're asking for 90 days, right? Which we're not contemplating here. We're contemplating 6, and giving them that opportunity to be able to see if we can't just, cross that last 2% of the line. That's where the ask is coming from. And so what I'd like to do then is actually call the question on this vote.
Mr. Schoenauer, wish you to respond?
Well, I just wanted to.
Actually, Mayor, I had the floor and I called the question, so I did not ask him for a vote. So I think we have to take a vote on calling the question.
Councilmember Perales, you don't simply call the question. If you'd like to make a motion, you can do so. But you
that's what calling the question is, Mayor. So I'll make a motion to call the question.
I was just responding to Councilmember Foley.
I mean, so does Mr. Schoenauer, the 11th council
member?
member?
There's a motion on the floor. I'm going to now consult Nora. Nora, are we required to vote at this moment? Or are we?
When the motion is made, yes. And I think it's a 2/3. I'm trying to find out right now what the
I
vote
believe it is a
to be.
2/3 requirement.
So it is a 2/3.
Okay, so we'll vote now on the motion to call the question or to continue debate. Tony?
Jimenez,
Yes.
Perales,
Yes.
Cohen,
No.
Roscoe,
Aye.
Davis,
No.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Foley,
No.
Mahan,
No.
Jones, Jones,
I'm sorry, yes?
Ricardo.
No. All right, the motion fails. Mr. Shaner, did you want to respond?
I just,
Did
Councilmember Foley and Perales alluded to posturing. And I just wanted to clarify something. You know, there is this flawed notion that developers want the denser, taller project, that somehow it's more valuable. And actually, in today's environment with high construction costs, the actual more valuable project is the lower density project, building housing in wood and not high rise, building non-high rise office buildings. So I just wanted to be clear that the project that we already had approved in 2007 would make us the most money. And we would be happy to build that. But in 2016, we made a promise to the mayor and the city council that in exchange for making changes that we wanted on the north side, that we would bring a zoning forward to the south side. And we spent $3 million and 5 years bringing this zoning to you that you requested. So I just wanted to have to be clear. We would be happy to build what we got, but we're following through on a promise to bring you this, from a city perspective, a better project.
All right, Councilmember Cohen?
Yeah, just quickly, I wanted to get clarification on the motion itself to continue, because there's a second question about the second reading. And I feel like that we have to make that decision now if we're asking council to have a special meeting in July, because there would have to be time staff would have to put into preparing for that and getting it posted, especially since 4th of July weekend is involved. So I just want a clarification as to whether the motion for continuance includes calling a special meeting. And I guess there's a question for Eric in here about the need to have a special meeting in July if this gets continued versus whether or not then at this point having that second reading the first week of August would change anything. So maybe Eric can answer that, and then maybe the person making the motion, I guess that's Councilmember Carrasco, can clarify what her intention is about second reading on this.
We encourage the council to make a decision today.
Okay. Is there a thought about when we should have that second reading if this continuance passes? I mean, since I see the sentiment of the council leaning a certain way, I want to make sure we're prepared for what the next step has to be. I guess.
Councilmember Cohen, could you maybe explain just a bit? I think there's probably a difficulty. Maybe
well,
some to
okay, I
respond,
mean,
because why having a second reading in July as opposed to August?
Well, I mean, there was a question, I guess we didn't get really an answer from the applicant, and I don't know whether it matters. I guess we can do the second reading first week of August. There was talk before from Councilmember Perales that given that there might be some need, and I don't want to get into the details, and I don't know enough about whether or not, any of the reasons are valid or not, but there had been a desire to have this done in June. One of our timeline questions was getting this done in June. And I do want to point out one thing I didn't mention about the timeline was this was scheduled for council in mid-May. Originally, it was actually scheduled last December and got deferred, and I'm glad it did because we had time to work out some of these solutions that weren't even contemplated then. This was then scheduled to come to council in mid-May, so it would be done with lots of time before the end of the fiscal year. It was then deferred to June 8th because of the planning commission delay and the work we were doing. And then when it got to be closer to June 8th, we realized, staff had been working so hard on the Google project, and there was more time needed to work out some of the arrangements on the negotiations. So we delayed it again by another 2 weeks to June 22nd. So this would be the fourth delay up to another council meeting for a vote. So I just want to, we've been working hard to try to get this done by the end of June. And I wanted to find out whether the intention here of my fellow council members is to try to meet that obligation, meet that promise that we would have this done close to the end of June, or if now the idea is we would come back in the beginning of August for a second reading. I guess that's my question for the supporters of the motion too.
All right, why don't we pose that to the maker of the motion? I believe that's Councilmember Carrasco. Is that right?
Hi, Mayor. I'm sorry. Dealing with a kitty that has the zoomies right now. Sorry. I'm okay coming back in July. We're Zooming from no matter where we are in whatever corner of the world we happen to be in. And if that is if that is what's going to get this over the finish line, so be it. I'm okay with that. So that would be what did you say the first week in July? I don't have a calendar in front of me. I'm sorry. So, if I can get this over the finish line and you can give me 6 days, I will do what's the pleasure of the council. First week in July, there's really no big rush anymore because there's no deadline, or we can do it that first week in August. I just want to get this over the finish line. I just want 6 more days. And whatever.
Okay, well, we can leave that.
Helps the medicine go down.
We can leave that up in the air, I suppose, at this point. I will only finish by saying that I'm particularly nervous for the flea market, for the vendors, and for my district about the potential risk that we would be putting any agreement in. I would hope that the applicant will, continue forward, because this, I think, is a good deal for everyone and preserves a key cultural and economic engine in my district, and it's also really important for the families that live in our district that this project move forward. So I hope that this won't put this at risk, but I find myself being particularly nervous to put anything at risk given the stakes of what it is that we're doing here. So I'll just end with that.
Councilmember Sparson?
Thank you. I just wanted to point something out, and I'm happy to meet in July or August for the second reading. I think we have a commitment to our residents, but given Councilmember Peralez's questions with the housing department, I think it made it pretty clear that July 12th isn't sort of an actual deadline. But like I said, I'm happy to do it beginning of July or August, doesn't matter to me. I would like our city employees to get July off, given that we're still in a pandemic and still dealing with COVID and all of that regard. I think city staff could use a break. So I'll say that. I also really just wanted to say, like the mayor and Councilmember Cohen, I'm at City Hall right now. And we have hunger strikers here. And so I just want to keep that in mind in the decisions that we make. The people are watching us. They're watching how we're treating people that have run out of options, and they're right there in a tent at City Hall. And so I think we have to ask ourselves, is that worth 6 days? And I think it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. All right, so we're going to vote on the deferral motion, unless there's anyone else who'd like to speak. I just want to share, look, I know that there seems to be a belief that there is a varying level of concern about the welfare of the families who are affected directly here, the livelihoods of 430 families. And I just want to offer that I think I'd like to believe that all of us are equally passionate about the livelihoods of all those families, as well as the many other community members who regard this as being a critical community treasure and gathering place. For those of us who might be concerned about a deferral, the question's a little different, which is, it may well be right, this is posturing. And I don't know if Mr. Schoenauer knows exactly what his clients are going to do or not. And this may well be something that pans out for that remaining 2% of whatever deal we might think we can get. But if we're wrong, we're gambling with the livelihoods of 430 families. And so it's fair to say there's plenty to be concerned on all sides. And we should not simply blind ourselves to the risk on either side. Let's vote.
And Mayor, can I just make a clarification? You're voting on a continuance, not a
Yes,
deferral.
thank you. We're voting on a continuance, not a deferral. And this is a continuance under Rule 4F. Is that correct, Nora? Just make sure I get it right. This is a 4B. I'm sorry, Rule 4B. Okay. It's a continuance under 4B.
Jimenez,
Yes.
Perales,
Yes.
Cohen,
No.
Roscoe,
Aye.
Davis,
No.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Foley,
No.
Mahan,
No.
Jones,
Yes.
Ricardo.
No. All right, the motion to continue prevails. So we're going to go to the remaining two items on our agenda. Item 10.5 is a city-initiated conforming rezoning of properties located at Sierra Road, Miracle Mountain Drive, and Casa Loma Road. There's no presentation. Is there anyone from the public who want to speak specifically on this item and no other item? Tessa?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Ricardo. What is the item? Mayor Ricardo? Hello?
Item 10.5, city initiated
is-
conforming rezoning of properties located at Sierra Road, Miracle Mountain Drive, and Casa Loma Road.
Okay, good. Well, I guess the issue of about rezoning is a big issue because we're dealing with that in our neighborhood and how this whole event has shown in terms of Berryessa and other rezonings. We have been asking, our neighborhood has been asking for our property at 615 Stockton Avenue on the corner, which is being zoned to be neighborhood commercial without the approval of our neighborhood. The same issues that have been going on with the Berryessa, that there was no community engagement to change the zoning, that is bringing us a hotel, that is bringing us the issues of human trafficking, sex trafficking that will happen in a hotel potentially, like it has happened in other apartments. To have that, we do not want that in our community. And
Thank you. Michael, do you want to weigh in here?
Yes, I just need to note that this item is tied to the decision on the Berryessa BART Urban Village Plan and the conforming rezoning on the VTA property. So since
Like to defer?
Yeah, I need the council to defer
Yeah.
this item to the 29th.
Okay.
Move to
is there a motion?
defer. Move to defer to the 29th.
Yeah, a motion from Councilmember Esparza, a second?
Second.
Okay. I see other folks who have raised their hands on this item, and I know I recognize the names of people who have spoken previously on the flea market item. So let me just say to each one of the speakers, this is specifically on a deferral on an unrelated item. Serena Arnold, would you like to speak specifically on a deferral on this unrelated item?
I get to speak where I'm going to speak, and you guys are letting a developer have full reign of the council while you're giving us minutes, you're giving us pennies, you're giving us crumbs, just like you're
Are
letting.
you speaking on this item? Okay, we'll move on. Okay, returning to 10.6. I'm sorry, we need to vote first on 10.5 is on the deferral. There's a motion.
Jimenez,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Cohen. Cohen. Roscoe, Davis,
Yes.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas, Foley,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo,
Aye.
going back to Cohen. Marking absent and Arenas. Marking absent.
All right, the motion prevails with 9 votes. Item 10.6, Michael, let me just check in with you. This is the general plan amendment on Evans Lane, 2 sites. Is this in any way required to be deferred?
It does not, but I should note that at the end of this, we're going to need the council to make a motion to continue the general plan hearing.
Yes.
29, so we want to add that. I do have a presentation on this, which I'm happy to give, or I cannot. It's up to the council's discretion. It's short.
Okay.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Councilmember Esparza.
So given the 29th, so we need, for this, could we hear the presentation and do a continuance again, or should we just defer everything? Because the 29th is pretty extensive agenda wise.
I'd like to see if we can resolve this item today.
Okay, same.
Yeah, okay. Michael?
Okay, let me pull up the presentation. Give me a second here. Okay, you should be able to see the show. Can everyone see it and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, so item 10.6 before you today, I was going to say this evening, is a city initiated general plan amendment to change the land use designation from mixed use neighborhood to urban residential on approximately a 5.93 acre site. The proposed general plan amendment would change the development density on this site from a maximum of 30 dwelling units to the acre and would allow future development up to a maximum of 95 dwelling units to the acre. The subject property is owned by the city of San Jose, and the proposed GPA has been brought forward by the housing department. And I should note that Rachel and Kemet from the housing department are joining me on this in my virtual box. So here's the location of the site. It is within a half a mile of the Kirtner Light Rail Urban Village. The site is bounded by Catalonia Apartments to the north, the Willow Glen Estates Mobile Home Park to the east, the Evans Lane Wellness and Recovery Center to the south, and a combination of land uses to the west across Evans Lane. A portion of the site is currently occupied by the Emergency Interim Housing Project approved by Council in the spring of 2020 in response to the COVID-19 emergency and the shelter's crisis declaration. As you can see, the current general plan designation is mixed use neighborhood, which supports development such as townhomes, small lot, single family, and can also be applied to existing neighborhoods that have a history or have a various lower intensity land uses. The proposed general plan amendment is urban residential, which would allow up to 95 dwelling units to the acre. I should note a virtual committee meeting was held for this proposal on November 16, 2020. There was a committee meeting. Responses to concerns have been included in the staff report. Initial study was prepared in accordance with CEQA, and it was determined the negative declaration is adequate for CEQA clearance, and that there is no significant impact on the environment. And the Planning Commission recommendation is to approve a negative declaration according with CEQA and approve this general plan amendment from mixed use neighborhood to urban residential. We also ask that the council also make a motion to continue the general plan hearing cycle to June 29th. And that concludes staff presentation, and we are available for questions.
All right, thank you very much, Michael. All right, we're going to open public comment because we are now many hours late on resolving these items, and because I'm going to lose a quorum very soon. I just lost Councilmember 2. We're going to close public comment at 11:10, and all public comment must be specifically on this item, property located on Evans Lane. Tessa? Tessa, you're
Unmute.
muted.
Hi. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you, sweetie. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Yes, definitely interested in how general plan amendments are implemented in our city, because we have been at the burnt edge of that. There have been 2 general plan amendments. One that brought us a hotel into our historic neighborhood that is, you know, close to the Native Americans that have founded our neighborhood. So don't tell me that our neighborhood is commercial. The Alonis were here first. And so we are a residential neighborhood, and you are putting commerciality into our neighborhood, hurting us with a hotel, a 5-story, 24-hour, 24/7 operation hotel.
Tessa,
And
this isn't
then
a
on top
hotel.
of it, I know.
This is Evans
Well,
Lane.
and I know what I'm talking about is the general plan change. And then on top of it, there was a affordable housing, and then another general plan.
Okay, Brenda?
I just want to say that, again, I see that they say there was community outreach. I would like to know how many people actually show up to community outreach. As we've seen in other developments, there's really not a lot of input, and I don't see them doing a lot of work trying to get community outreach on these important developments that I keep seeing everywhere. Right now with the flea market, I am going to bring it up. That is a development that didn't get a lot of community outreach, and I'm still very disappointed in everyone. I do want to say thank you to Maya Esparza, Carrasco, and Perales for really sticking
Brenda,
out.
we're speaking on 10.6 at this time. All right, Blair?
Hi, as this is a Evans Lane project, you've been doing some important work on Evans Lane about affordable housing ideas and help. Thank you. I really hope that we're at the time to be considering that affordable housing is not just, you know, market rate or 80% of market rate. You know, we're talking ELI, VLI, and mixed income ideas. That is our future of affordable housing. We need to learn to more openly talk about that, and more openly talk about that for the future of the flea market as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul?
Good morning, Council. The reluctance on this part of the city to really put redlining out there in city government so that we can examine just how much the Mexicans and the Blacks were deprived of equal protection under the law and due process of law, and that the city now is profiting from that. You see, you're making these changes on land that was acquired by the deprivation of those processes, these constitutional processes. So it's not legitimate. And as a lawyer, Ricardo, you know this. You know that we were deprived of that, and that's the reason why you don't want to put redlining on the map so we can examine it.
Thank you. Ms. Arnold, we're speaking on the property in Evans Lane, which is being
Yeah.
upzoned for affordable housing.
Yeah, speaking on Evans Lane, you know, we need to understand that the developers do not have clear holds on our city. You guys are supposed to be our representatives. Do you understand that? You guys are representing our interests, not just the interests of those who have money, not just the interests of those who have power, okay? You are voted in by our own power, which is our vote. We voted you guys in to do what we want you guys to do, what we need you guys to do, which is to support us. You can't just keep taking away our right to even speak. Like the woman who was talking about the hotel, what you're not listening is her comparison to that and this project. And that's because you don't want to listen. You want to just
this is about
corral
affordable
us.
housing.
No,
that's being built
don't
on
stop
Evans Lane.
muting
Would you like to
people.
speak on this
Stop.
item?
I am speaking.
All right. I'm going to return to the council. Is there Councilmember Davis?
Thank you, Mayor. This site does have our emergency interim housing, and we've been working with the housing department even before we put the interim housing site on there so that we could do permanent development at the same time as we had the interim site. So I would like to move staff recommendation for this item as well as the continuance for the general plan hearing. And I'm happy to go into any more detail anybody wants about this site because I've been working on it since before I was first elected in 2016.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis. And by the way, thank you for your work. I know this is also very close to Councilmember Sparsa's district. And there's been obviously enormous amount of activity in terms of building affordable housing in and around these sites. So appreciate all the support for the continued development of affordable housing, particularly the recent opening of a emergency housing facility there for many families. Councilmember Sparsa?
I just wanted to acknowledge how many, how years of work and outreach and meetings that have gone into this. And I actually wanted to give a shout out to Councilmember Davis. She probably doesn't remember this, but it was a few years ago. There was a discussion that I happened to be in the room on about the density of this project. And her first reaction was, we should add more density to it. And so I just wanted to give her a shout out and acknowledge her work on this project and in taking it from something that there were, you know, huge groups of people screaming and shouting to something that we're at today where everybody just says, yeah, it makes sense. It's what's best. So, so I'll happily support it.
Thank you. All right, let's vote on Councilmember Davis's motion. And that is continue the hearing.
Rallis,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Roscoe,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas, Foley,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jones. Aye. Ricardo.
Aye. All right, thank you. And we're going to continue this hearing to June the 29th at the time set by the Rules Committee. I expect it will be 11 a.m. or something like that. And we will now go to open forum. And I know, again, we're losing our forum. So we will hear public comment until no later than 11:20 on open forum. Blair?
Hi, thank you. I wanted to quickly comment that the person for item 10.5 who missed out on was upset with public comment. She can and to everyone who's listening today, they can if they didn't get public comment time, really write to San Jose City government and let your feelings be known that way. It's a very good way to work also. I wanted to quickly offer, I said yesterday, you know, let's do it now. Let's negotiate and work together on these issues of the flea market now. You know, I should have said something a little different, and I'm sorry if I was a bit strong. But I think there is a way that can be a really cooperative, good effort from all sides. I'm really still hopeful that process. Good luck how we do that. I had a few weird words about Diridon Station planning. I'll offer that at Rules and Open Government today. Thanks a lot for everyone's efforts the past few days.
Thank you. Tessa?
Yes, thank you. So what our neighborhood is demanding from our city is that just like what's been happening in this Berryessa event, is that the public comment, the public outreach has been so poor that we have been left with not really having any agency to create the neighborhood that we want. And that is what, you know, you're fighting with the Berryessa, is that there wasn't enough community input. And that's what we're asking for now too, that you changed our general plan without notification to neighborhood commercial right in our historic neighborhood. Then there was a chance for it to become residential, that the developer and owner put in a request for resident affordable housing. That was denied because of another general plan change that we were not alerted to, that to keep residential away from commercial. So you're protecting businesses instead of our.
Vice Mayor, you're muted, it seems.
Thank you. Brenda.
Hi again. I just want to thank council members that we're finding solutions, and alternative ways to speak out for our vendors, Magdalena Carrasco, Raul Perales, and Vice Mayor Chappie and Maya Esparza. I really do want to thank you guys because it's not easy being in your chairs. And I know that all of you guys have to make difficult decisions. You know, I am not surprised by Dave Davis. I'm not surprised by Matt Mahan, and I am not surprised by Foley. They stick together, right? And I will make sure that people vote you guys out. David Cohen.
Thank you, Paul. Go ahead.
This is a piece of writing that was written in 1853 in California. Mexicans, is there no remedy for you? Inviolable laws, yet useless. Sir, it is true. Certain judges and hypocritical authorities, cemented in evil and injustice, to do whatever suits them and to satisfy their vile avarice at the cost of your patience and suffering, rising in their frenzy, even to the taking of life through the treacherous hands of their bailiffs. The wicked ways in which many of you have been oftentimes involved in persecution, accompanied by circumstances making it the more bitter, is now well known. These crimes being hid from society under the shadow of a horrid night, these implacable people with a haughty spirit which suggests impunity for a life of criminality have pronounced that they are superior.
Thank you. Roland?
Thank you, Vice Mayor and Council. So I really appreciated the conversation that you had earlier on about starting to look for an alternate location for the vendors. And especially you mentioned the vast acreage that the county owns. I'd like to bring to your attention, we've got an absolute pearl in down where I live, which is Marshall Cottle, which is 256 acres. And we know for a fact there will never ever be any housing there. And I would like us to reach out to the council and start looking at the deeds and see what could possibly be done. For that matter, we could have a Berryessa replica. Think about it. The amount of water we could store there and circulate the water back and forth, you know, between Marshall Cottle and Berryessa. But anyway, going back to the vendors, I think be a tremendous opportunity. And by the way, we're right there on the Blossom Hill Light Rail, which is basically 10 years before BART ever gets to Berryessa. So thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Sorry about that, Vice Mayor. Can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I start to understand Mr. Schronauer's position and appreciate what he has to struggle with at times. The project I was involved in didn't work out the way I thought it would, but there's a lot of emotion involved in it too. And I just wish people understood that we're not the enemy. And it sometimes feels like we are the enemy, but also you're not the enemy either. If that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Serena?
Hi. I would like to just remind you guys, you need to allow for the full public comment. I understand that it's been dragging on. I understand that you're only human and you have things to do. So do we. We have things to do as well. We have lives. We have bills to pay. So stop cutting us off. Stop denying our speaking ability. You cut it down from 2 minutes to 1 to now less than that because you cut us off when we talk about unvoting you. Okay? You guys need to understand that this is what we have to do. This is our democratic right. This is our right as citizens to do, is to speak to you guys. You can't just unmute, you can't just mute us and disconnect us. We are here. And if you're going to keep doing that to us, then we are going to show up in person. Okay, I understand the developers, you're not all evil. There are plans, there are projects that have worked and have benefited the community. The problem is that there are a lot that do not, because they do not connect or do not contact the people who are affected. They try to reel in people who are coming in. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Gabby.
Hello, City Council. I just wanted to share how over and over again the public has complained about the lack of outreach in many projects, and city staff and planning department, they work really hard and nonstop, and community outreach is just another item on the to-do list when it comes to planning. And historically, the city has been doing the bare minimum because of the manpower that they have. And I think something needs to change in the way projects are approved and developed. And I feel like it's time the city considers hiring someone who specifically manages community outreach for all projects. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Catherine?
Good morning, council. I just like to say that I wish all the constituencies in the city were treated with the deference that the city treats the developers. And I hope that the county, I hope the city will take up an Office of Disability Affairs like the one that the county voted to look into yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. That is all this public speakers. So this meeting is adjourned.
We're not adjourned.